Operating ratio. This ratio is one of the important ratio to understand what is the operating cost involved in every sale. So operating ratio will establish a relationship between the operating cost and net sales, so that out of net sales we'll be able to know what is the cost or operating cost component involved in that. So what is operating cost? First of all, see, operating cost is nothing but the cost of goods sold. I mean, if you're making a sale, what is the cost of that goods sold plus the operating, or say other operating expenses? What are the other operating expenses related to that sales? That's more important. So operating cost is nothing but cost of goods sold and other operating expenses. So now you will have a question, what is this cost of goods sold and what is this other operating expenses? We'll see that. See, the cost of goods sold can be divided into two types. One is applicable for manufacturing units, the other one for non-manufacturing units. For manufacturing units you will have a separate category, and for non-manufacturing units you will have a separate category. See, for manufacturing we'll see what it is. It is basically the cost of raw material consumed, okay, plus the manufacturing expenses. So this is the cost of goods sold for manufacturing units, whereas for non-manufacturing units it is what is the opening stock you had in the beginning plus what are the goods you have purchased, and what are your direct expenses, then adjusted for closing stock, of say stock or materials, whatever. So the cost of goods sold is different for manufacturing and non-manufacturing firms. For manufacturing it is your material cost plus manufacturing expenses. For a non-manufacturing firm it is your purchases plus direct expenses and the difference between the opening and closing stock. So this is important to understand cost of goods sold. And we were also mentioning about other operating expenses, that could be the admin expenses and selling and distribution expenses. So operating cost basically consists of the cost of goods sold and other operating expenses. So we will find operating ratio. So operating ratio, we have established relationship between operating cost and net sales, right? So it is operating cost divided by net sales into 100. We'll take a simple example to understand this even more effective way. I'm going to give you the information. The sales made by the company is 100 and there is a sales return of 10. Fine. And I'll give you, there is a raw material consumed of 60, manufacturing expenses of 40 and admin expenses of 5. So with this information we have to calculate operating ratio. So what is operating ratio? It is operating cost divided by net sales into 100. So now we should know what is operating cost, and I have told you operating cost is nothing but cost of goods sold plus other operating expenses. So first let us find what is the cost of goods sold. Here the cost of goods sold are raw material consumed and manufacturing expenses. That's the cost of goods sold. And for other operating expenses we just have admin expense, so we'll make note of it. Now we can sum the cost of goods sold and other operating expenses, which would give us the operating cost, which is 75. Now we need net sales, right? So we know sales is equal to 100, whereas sales return is 10, and this would give net sales of 90. That is 100 minus 10, which is 90. Now we have to establish relationship between the net sales and operating cost, and this would give us operating cost 75 divided by net sales of 90 into 100, and so the operating cost is 83%. So this is the operating ratio, which tells us what is the operating cost involved in the net sales. Thank you.